Leah, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We've had a great talk independent of this one.
We have a lot of fun.
We have roots, both of us, in Natick, Massachusetts.
We do.
I was actually telling someone about buying cannabis in Natick, Massachusetts.
So who's open in Natick?
I want to say Tamika, but that's actually not what it's called. Something with a T. It's across from Dunkin' Donuts as you get on the Mass Pike on 135 and Speen Street.
We don't know what it's called, but go there.
Tamika Wellness. I feel like that's what it's called.
Could be. Temescal?
Temescal.
Ah,
Sorry.
Temescal used to be here in Maryland, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry. Cut that. Temescal Wellness, I think it's called. So that's there. And it's good. I like putting an order in advance and going to get it. It's very close to where my folks live, so that's convenient. I sometimes put the order in because we always take the Logan Express out on the bus, and then I could stop. That's where the Logan Express is. Get the weed before I get to my parents' house.
Very smart. And convenience is one of the major reasons people shop.
It is.
At any particular dispensary.
So I don't even know where the other dispensaries are, actually. I only know that one.
Which makes sense.
I don't know if there are more. Natick is pretty tight with alcohol and certainly cannabis, I'd imagine. I'm not even sure that's in Natick. It might be Framingham.
Oh, I bet you it is in Framingham.
Framingham's. I know there's more dispensaries in Framingham. But there's weed in Massachusetts for sure.
Oh, yeah. Massachusetts is an interesting market.
Yeah. Interesting. You say interesting like...
Very over-regulated.
Oh, I was going to say interesting. Yeah, I was going to say.
Price compressed market. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a very... it's one of the more challenging markets in the United States.
Yeah, I believe that. Mm-hmm. I also think it's a challenging place to do business anytime.
I agree.
I don't know.
I feel like if you are a Massachusetts operator and you can figure out how to stay in revenue,
but also,
amazing.
There's major operators that are based there and operate there.
Absolutely.
Just this week, we talked to Air Wellness. They're based in Massachusetts, I think.
Is Air based in Massachusetts?
I don't know if they're based, but they have a footprint, I think, in Massachusetts. And Theory Wellness is certainly based in Massachusetts, and they have a footprint. And then they are also in Maine, Vermont, New Jersey, and maybe somewhere else.
Yeah.
Certainly Vermont.
Well, and Ascend, that's the second multi-state operator I took public.
Okay.
We were headquartered in Massachusetts when I was there. They relocated to New York for their headquarters. But
I also know there's an Ascend in Newton, right next to the Trader Joe's that I see on the Mass Pike.
Yes, there is.
See, all these things are like very Massachusetts. But talk to me about what you do. Gemini Twin Consulting. Tell me what you do, because you're steeped in the industry, but behind the scenes.
Yes.
I feel like.
Because I build infrastructure. So
tell me what that means.
So I build decision-making, HR, compliance, legal, tech back-end. How do your systems all integrate together? Now, I'm not a tech person, but I'll hire the tech people. Basic decision-making trees, growth transformation strategy is basically what I do in cannabis.
And there's lots of needs for professionals like you in a fast-growing industry.
Yes, and honestly, a lot of the mistakes I see when I'm doing consulting are just basic business fundamentals. We are in such a rush.
Business fundamentals? This is cannabis.
I know, exactly. We rush to get to revenue, which I get it, but in that rush, we miss even basic things like how do you name your files and where do you store them?
Physically and digitally.
Physically and digitally. Like the amount of time I have seen wasted and the efficiency cost that it happens because people are just looking inside of other people's emails for files. It's crazy.
So you take the best practice from a business that's been in business forever.
Yep.
And say, how do we get that from day one so that you are built for the next 20 years?
And if you're not there at day one, I'd like to go in before you hit 70 employees when it starts to get really complex.
Is that the HR?
Yeah, that's 75 employees. You really need to have an HR professional in there, and you need to be doing scaling organizational strategy. What does it look like when you hit certain revenue benchmarks? How much is your, what staffing levels are you going to need? Do you have career pathing? Are your employees happy? Unhappy employees cause unionization and lots of lawsuits.
Angst, yes.
Yeah, so best to keep the employees happy if you can. It's a tough industry, and you've got to be tenacious and be able to rebound even as an employee. But
were you a management consultant before this? What were you doing? What did you do before this?
I was a prosecutor.
Oh, okay. I turned the mic off for that. No, I'm just kidding. In Maryland.
For the federal government.
Okay.
And very specific part of prosecution.
Okay.
I prosecuted people for killing, harming, and harassing marine mammals and violating commercial fishery regulations.
Really? Mm-hmm. We could talk about that too.
Yeah, that's
not right now, but
fun. That was fun.
Interesting.
But I got really sick in 2001 and was told I wasn't going to live 5 years and went on disability. Lived in and out of the hospital for 13 years until a doctor in 2014 told me to try cannabis.
Really?
Changed my life. I haven't been hospitalized since 2016.
Wow.
Don't have diabetes. On an MRI, they will tell you that my pancreas should be being removed. That's what they recommended. I maintain my body weight. I digest my food. I don't have diabetes.
Wow.
All good. So then I decided that was going to bring me into cannabis. And
it did.
Started doing business work. I got a dispensary in Maryland, was my first kind of foray. Sold it to Forefront Ventures, went inside of there, scaled them, then went to Ascend, scaled them. Both of those to public exit, and then started doing management consulting after.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a unique story. Prosecutor cannabis is a unique story, but even the stops in between are very compelling. And so you've seen a lot, obviously, here in Maryland, but also broader than that. And because Maryland is your literal backyard, talk about that as it's emerged, because it went legal July last year, but a very big medical program already in place. Maryland decided to go to those operators first and say, you're going to offer adult use, and then we're going to expand licensing, which seems like the better path from an outsider's perspective, because you can see what happened in Michigan and Missouri.
New York.
Right. You can compare it with New York, but Michigan and Missouri, similar, now medical operators are going to we want you to start opening, sort of the dual stream, and it happens faster. Mm-hmm. To my mind, it happens faster and more smoothly because you don't have this overhang of demand versus product versus stores to buy it. But is that how it looks to you as well? Did Maryland make some smart decisions along the way?
I think Maryland made some smart decisions. I do have some concerns the way the current structure has rolled out. Okay. Back in 2016, when I got my dispensary license in Maryland, you applied with a lot of materials.
Right.
So thousands and thousands of pages, and there was a lot of assessment. I'm not sure that the current process to apply for a license in the state of Maryland is actually going to help anybody know what they need to do to get open.
I see.
Because it was 10 questions, and even though pro forma was 6 inches long,
right,
and it missed a bunch of line items, and you stuck it in there, but I'm not sure it was very helpful. And then Maryland has some unique restrictions in terms of transfer of licenses and equity ownership, so that you can't dilute as a social equity operator below 65%. And as you know, when raising capital,
you need to.
You may need to. You
right.
probably
so
will
you're going
need
to be
do it.
Pinned into a license,
it's almost like they're going to be handcuffed, which
right.
I'm really concerned about.
Yeah.
I think there's going to have to be lots of creativity in how they raise. But Maryland is really committed to creating a robust social equity program and ensuring that the social equity operators have the opportunity to create generational wealth, and that's their fear and why they have structured the program the way they have. But we'll see. I'm not sure any state's rolled out social equity right yet.
No. Several have done it really wrong.
Really wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. Really, really wrong. There needs to be a balance between people who get a social equity license because they want generational wealth and they want to operate it long term. There has to be a pathway to them to get capital and do revenue. But there also has to be a pathway for someone to apply for a license, get a license, and sell that license,
right.
because that's okay.
Right.
But in Maryland, you can't sell it for 5 years.
It's a long haul.
That is a long time to hold on to a cannabis license. I mean,
yes.
We were talking earlier about how long just being in cannabis is in dog years, right?
Right.
It's the cannabis dog years.
5 years is
5 years an eternity.
Yeah. Both for that operator, but also for a market.
Of course.
You know what's going to change 5 years.
It
Every
changes
market
like
has.
this.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people a lot in cannabis, get comfortable with a pivot because it's coming.
Yeah, even this week. And this one was
a great one.
A very good pivot,
Yep.
but the pivot nonetheless. And actually, to the point, like, makes these businesses more valuable.
It does.
And makes the generational wealth, in this case, hopefully easier to come by.
I hope so, and I do hope that we'll see some capital that was sitting out on the sidelines be more willing to invest in early stage. What I've seen lately is that there isn't any real venture capital in the industry because they want to see execution first, which is not how it was before. And if you're just starting out, you can't get a loan from a bank. How are you getting funded?
Right. And experience, well, the only way to be experienced, it's like applying for a job. Like,
right, exactly.
We need you to have 10 years experience, but you don't know where to get it. Right? It's like, okay, well, give me an operator that's had 10 years experience. There's basically none.
Right, exactly.
Out west, some of them, but even some of those guys are close too.
Show me a successful operator.
That's right. No, but so it is this inflection point, I think, and I ask you, like, more states now, certainly in the Northeast and moving further south, are legal. And the way I see the world, but this is a gut check with you, like I see a couple different regional markets, even though they're not markets in the sort of traditional sense, but the Northeast, say Maryland and North, look a lot more similar than the Southeast, which are still not there yet. The Southwest and Northwest maybe actually look more alike, but like Southwest has more new states like New Mexico and Arizona, and the Northwest is sort of old hat. And then Midwest, which is its own robust thing happening. Like those are the 5 broad areas that we think about at Cultivated as like these emerging, old or mature, new or not yet, and then like happening. And the Midwest looks similar to New England, but actually not, or the Northeast, but not exactly.
Yeah, and because we are living in little microcosms, there really isn't a way for these markets to look the same.
No.
And every state is so different in its consumer demographics and how you operate businesses and your business taxes that it makes it very complex to figure out if you're looking for state expansion, additional states, what state do you go into that will partner best with your type of, like let's say you're a Northeast vertical, and you want to go to Missouri, well, it's going to look way different in Missouri than it does in Massachusetts.
Whereas Missouri and Michigan might look more alike than it would if you added or than if you were in California for that matter, or anywhere. And does that, to what you do, does that add just an enormous amount of complexity when someone comes to you say, we actually need your help, we're going to start opening up in X state? Like, okay, but like some of the systems we have in place may not be transferable to there, or you may need to like overhaul your operations because of X, Y, and Z.
So that's actually my favorite thing to do is do that, right? Is to say, okay, you have a company, you're at revenue, you have a good cash runway, and you want to move into another state, and how do we get there? What do the laws look like? Do processes need to change? How do you implement that change management? That's fun. When I was at Ascend, it was Illinois went rec at the same time as COVID. And we went from 73 transactions in one of our stores to 2,200 overnight. So trying to figure out how to scale a company to a public exit, keep everybody employed, and keep making revenue during COVID, which ultimately ended up being really good for the industry anyways, was so much fun.
Yeah.
COVID sucked, but it was really fun.
Yeah, and even in as much as sort of in Canada, in Ontario where I am, like you weren't allowed to have online sales the day before COVID, and then all of a sudden you were.
Oh, Maryland, you weren't allowed to have drive-thrus.
Right, and then you were.
Or curbside.
Right.
And
then
boom,
you were.
There you are.
Yeah, and it set up a whole sort of technological challenges for sure, but actually thinking about the drive-thru, I was just in Florida, and a huge medical program, 800,000 patients or something. Both exits in my parents' community where they live in South Florida, there's a dispensary that each one used to be a bank on different sides of the, they're like 2 miles apart, but like they are dispensaries that look like they're ready to have drive-thrus that are medical now, but like right at the exit.
Ready to go.
Cannabis loves old people, and old people love cannabis.
They do. It's one of the largest growing demographics of consumers.
Yeah, why not?
It should be. I mean, lots of pain.
It helps you sleep.
Inflammation helps you sleep,
Don't have to
reduces
drink.
anxiety. Yeah, it's not as horrible for your liver. Good, all good.
Yeah. It's going to go gangbusters in Florida, but talk about that actually, because after now, so from moving forward, there aren't that many big states to go. But let's leave Texas to the side, but Pennsylvania and Florida. I mean, there are other big states, but those ones are huge.
Huge.
Like that certainly Florida would have like a massive impact on the industry if November passes. by 60%.
Florida will be huge for the industry. I mean, most of the MSOs have plays inside of Florida. I know Kim Rivers has been working really hard to get Florida legalized. I'm going to bet on Kim over DeSantis, but we'll see. I think Florida is going to be a great market. It's already a great market,
I know, it's huge.
even as a medical market.
Yeah.
It's an amazing medical market. Like the only thing that's even close and equivalent in my mind is Arizona was a great medical market.
But it's so big. It's like
So big.
and there's a lot of dispensaries.
Yeah.
Like it's noticeable.
Yeah, it's really good market.
But imagine if we married up those medical dispensaries with beachside dispensaries for rec. Like it's gangbusters. I don't know if
They
they'll
can
do it.
do some consumption lounges. That would be fun too.
Sure, but everything's outside anyway. And there's tons
right.
of people are smoking everywhere in Florida.
They are.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. This has been great to meet you.
So fun.
I'm glad. I'm sad it took so long, but glad it happened today. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
That sounds fun.
In Maryland or maybe Natick, Massachusetts. You never know.
We can go to Casey's and have a hot dog.
They should open a dispensary out the back. It would be great. Hot dogs and cannabis.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Could we do infused hot dogs?
Probably. Yeah, I'm sure it's cut down on the cannabis business in Natick High parking lot, having legal cannabis in Massachusetts. But I'm not going to name names of who we were hanging out with in Natick High. But thank you for your time. This was wonderful. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.